So this is how to write a personal statement. I'm Alexandra Fry. I'm a PGY4 at Beaumont Health in Detroit. And I'm one of the leaders of the Representation and Rehab Research Committee. So I'm happy to have you guys all here today. All right, if you have any questions, I can't see the chat box, so just go ahead and speak up and we'll get to it. We'll also have plenty of time for questions at the end. Okay, so let's start with where to start. So let's start with our goals. So what you want to do is paint a picture in the mind of the reader. That's the whole point. It's a big story, right? If they want a whole CV, you can give them a list, that kind of thing. But this is for a more narrative approach for them to get to know you. So the whole point is telling a story. And you want to tell who you are, how you got there, and where you want to go. And how to start there is looking at your CV. So is there a theme? If there is, weave it in. For me, I've always been really involved in mentorship and education, and I had that in different organizational positions and different types of volunteering. And so I kind of made that a theme of my my personal statement. I started it at the beginning talking about mentorship and kind of ended it that way as well. And so if you have something that you're really passionate about, you can kind of sprinkle it in as you go and tie it in to make it a big overall theme. It kind of makes it more cohesive that way. And then you also should look over your CV to see what experiences you want to highlight. There's things that you might not necessarily put on your ERAS that you would want to make sure that you have come across. There's different stories that are involved with parts of your CV that you wouldn't be able to list otherwise. So what are you proud of? Look at your CV. That's where you start. All right. Next slide. Okay. So this example layout, if you don't take anything away, this is kind of like the big slide that kind of is what I tell everybody that I mentor and has worked pretty well for me and others in the past. This is just an example, so feel free to, vary whatever your approach is. But this is just kind of what I recommend as a way to start out. So first paragraph. So these are breaking it down into 5 paragraphs. Of course, you can split things up however you want to, but for me, I like to do an intro. So do a hook, do a story, and something that ties to what drew you to PM&R or why you love PM&R so much. I would first talk about somewhere in that first paragraph, what got you excited about PM&R, what started everything. And yes, everybody always talks about a hook, but it's a thing. We're human. We like to read stories that captivate us, right? So if there's something that really, you can figure out a hook later. But talk about a story that excites you. And so this kind of ties in, paragraph 1 and 2 kind of tie in together. If you did a patient case for paragraph 1, I might start with a personal story for paragraph 2, or vice versa. But obviously you can do both personal stories, or I would limit max 2 patient cases. You don't really want to overwhelm them. Usually I say just do 1, maybe, you can tie in a little bit somewhere else, but don't go too heavy on the patient cases because they want to know more about you. But they definitely want to know what draw you to PM&R. So that's a good first way to start. Then paragraphs 3 and 4 tie in together. I call it bragging, but it's humble bragging, of course. You want to talk about different parts of your CV. So, kind of look through your CV. What do you want to highlight? You definitely want to pick at least 1 thing of research, 1 thing of volunteering, 1 thing of leadership. You can have multiple of all of those depending on what you like. You can touch a little bit on each one, or you can kind of make them a big chunk of your personal statement for each part of it, just depending on how you want to do it. But the goal here for paragraph 3 and 4, you can, use it however you want to, but is to really highlight your strengths. So if you are saying that your strength is being a good communicator, then you can talk about, leading this organization. If you're really, you say that you're very inquisitive and you want to learn, maybe you talk about more about research, and each of these things that you do kind of mention a quality of yours or allude to it in in this part. So you want to just, it's humble bragging, but you need to brag. I mean, this is your point of like showing off. So you want specific concrete things, because otherwise it sounds like just any other applicant. You want to, you know, highlight what you've done and what you've worked so hard to do. So anyways, those are paragraphs 3 and 4. And then the last one is just a conclusion. But you want to kind of put it in their court. What are you what are you looking for in the future? What are you going to bring? Like, what are you going to offer them? What are your aspirations, you know, career goals? You can talk about sports medicine or pain medicine or whatever you're excited about. You can also leave it open and say that you want to do general, whatever works for you. But definitely, you know, talk about, like, bring it towards the future, right? So like the first paragraph is maybe more of your past. The last one is more of your future. And the middle one is, you know, kind of what you've been up to. So that's kind of the layout that I like to use, and I hope it helps. All right, so I saw this online. I thought it was super helpful. This is actually kind of a rubric that people used for family medicine kind of grading things. And so like we talked about, the first part is a theme. Then you have, you know, a story that captivated, you know, them and what the main story was that they talked about. You have different experiences that people talked about. And then strengths. So this is what we were talking about. So relationships, communication, what you're good at. And then for the future part, you know, what are they looking for? You know, are they trying to do nursing home, academic medicine, that kind of thing? So this would also be a good, you know, inspiration for you guys, just as a good example. So they kind of, they read so many of these personal statements. So having a rubric that people use is very helpful. All right. Next slide. So I have a slide for do's and a slide for don'ts. This is a slide for do's. So in general, these are just guidelines, about a page, single spaced, if you do like 12-point Times New Roman. And in general, when you give these personal statement drafts to your letter writers for letters of rec, they in general like to see it in this format as well. And you can like indent each paragraph as you go, but make your writing interesting. So use active verbs, you know, don't repeat the same kind of phrasing. Very sentence length and structure. You know, don't do these run-on sentences that I like to do. If you notice that, kind of break them up later on. You know, just make it a good readable narrative. And then one of the most important things, I think, is to have everybody read it. The more the better. You know, your mom might be really good at editing, you know, papers, things like that. Anybody that you want, they will be able to provide something, I feel like. Once you feel like it's, you know, well written, I would advise you to give it to your mentor, a faculty member, hopefully, somebody that can really, you know, check it for all the fine points and make sure that it's good for completion, for sharing. But don't be afraid to ask faculty for advice for this. There's a lot of them that even just when you're in clinic, you're like, you have a printed paper and you're like, hey, can you check this over? Like, if you have a second. I've done that. It's great. Super helpful. They're always happy to help. And yeah, give yourself plenty of time for feedback. Like, get started now. They want to see the drafts, the letter writers, because that helps them get to know you as well. All right. Couple don'ts. Don't just, you know, spell out your CV again, you know, make it interesting. Don't just write an autobiography. You know, this is a personal statement. This is specific. Can't violate HIPAA. We know that. Actually, I think I misspelled HIPAA, but there we are. Don't use abbreviations. You should spell things out, of course. Don't start every sentence with I. Again, basic grammar, but still. Speaking of grammar, just make sure that you write well, because honestly, they notice. And so, you know, right before you submit it, just make sure you're not distracting them from what you really want them to focus on. And also, if you're considering other specialties, a lot of people do different personal statements for each one. I know it's a lot of work, but that's important because they will see through it. Trust me, they will. All right. Is that the end? All right, this might be, that's my end. All right, I'm gonna stop screen sharing. We're gonna go back to everyone. And that is it. So what kind of questions do we have? Oh, I see the chat. Okay, awesome. Let's start at the beginning. What if the patient story you want to include also drew you in? Then I would recommend putting that at the beginning. If whatever drew you in, I would put that at the beginning. So that would be an excellent thing to do. If it's a personal story, put that at the beginning. But you want to start it as like, this is why I got excited about PM&R. Like this is it. All right. So how long should these paragraphs be? It is difficult to limit paragraph lengths while also limiting the overall length of the essay. So if you want, just focus on the overall length. You can cut paragraphs in half. You can do whatever you want, really. Like there's no true like hard rules for this. So if you want to, in general, I did actually do 5 large paragraphs to kind of keep each theme separate. But you can do as many paragraphs as you feel is appropriate. So just make sure, I think the overall length is the most important part. Any advice on how to talk about your experiences in the personal statement and the new most important experience selection on ERAS without sounding too repetitive? Personally, I would vary them. So if you're able to and have enough experiences, I would do different experiences for each. That way they have some new variety. If there's a couple of them that you want to make sure, no matter what your interviewer or the person reviewing your application is looking at, they see this most important thing, like you founded an organization or you're something that you're like really proud of, you're highlighting things. You can put those top 2 things in a variety of different parts. But in general, I would try to vary it because then you can highlight different things depending on, what they see. So yeah, it's hard to be true. It's hard to not be repetitive, honestly, because I keep adding stuff that you guys have to do. I don't envy you. Advice on discussing or weaving difficult life situations during medical school or possible red flags. That is an excellent question. I had something, there was like a personal issue that had to do with mental health. So for me, what I ended up doing is I weaved it in my narrative. It's really good to talk about it. This is a place to talk about your red flag, period. And I would put it somewhere in the middle if you can. But just kind of like mention it so that they know, okay, if this is your red flag, you can give them a reason without them having to ask, because they'll ask, they'll be thinking it in their heads. So anyways, my experience had to do with mental health. So what I did was I mentioned that I founded an organization to help with mental health, and I talked about my experience briefly with it. And I was told that it was very helpful to have it on my personal statement to like explain what I was going through. So you don't have to, do a whole novel on it, but I think that will go a long way in your application. But it's a good idea to address it, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. Any insight on personalizing statements for top programs? I don't think it's necessary personally. I think they know that you're applying to different places, and if you personalize it, it might be a little extra. I don't think that they're necessarily expecting it. So if what I did actually is, this was before all the locations things where you like signal different locations, but I did a couple different personal statements depending on which area of the country it was. So I'm from the South, so I did one personal statement for I really want to stay in the South at the end of my last paragraph. And then I did another one for I'm looking to explore outside of the South for other parts. So you can put as many personal statements on there, and you can determine which you want for each of them. But of course, that adds more clicks and it gets a little bit more complicated. So you're allowed to. I don't think it'll make a difference too, like Roxy said. How long should these paragraphs be? Somebody said, okay, perfect. Yeah, shorter is better. Yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah, 5 sentences max for a paragraph is a good idea. If they're shorter, you can do some more, but yeah, not too long. These people are reading a lot of them, and the more length you add to it, the less they'll probably read. If I want to have a small paragraph addressing a specific program's strengths and how I would fit well in that program, should it be in the conclusion paragraph or have its own paragraph? So I don't know if I would address a program's strengths. This is your personal statement. This is for, to highlight you and not the program. But if you want to hint at a program's strengths, because I feel like people can kind of see when you're like trying to suck up a little bit, but that's just my own personal opinion. So I would definitely fit in, like if you want to talk about what you're excited for in residency, and what you're looking for in a program, I would definitely put that in the last paragraph for sure. Can you use abbreviations like PM&R, or should that be spelled out too? Honestly, I put PM&R and I put physiatry. I actually I varied them. I kind of looked at the very end to see, okay, I did PM&R, and then the next time I mentioned it, I did physiatry, the next time PM&R. People know, I mean, you're applying for this field, so you're allowed to use that as an abbreviation. Absolutely. All right. Is it okay to use my words, or should we avoid them entirely? No, this is your personal statement. You talk about, my grandmother, blah, 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 or, this experience was so meaningful to me. Definitely. Yeah. This is you from your own voice. So that's fine. How much should we revamp our personal statements for prelim years? My advisor recommended just adjusting less. A future facing paragraph to discuss you want to get out of intern year. I was told you don't even have to touch a personal statement for the prelim applications. So basically what I was told, and they confirmed that in my interviews that I had, was the prelim programs know that you're not going to stay with them forever. They know that they're like just there for the year. And so basically, like, they know that this is not the field. You're not trying to be a prelim forever. Like, you want to go on to be whatever you want to be. And so they just want to see passion. They want to see that you're dedicated. They want to see that you're gonna, work well with them for a year, be a good sport, work hard and keep your nose down. And your personal statement for PM&R will do just that. So you don't have to write a new one. What other questions? Okay, what are some cliches in PM&R personal statements? That is a good question. I think too many patient cases, and too many, especially patient cases that are, what I've seen the most is trying to put a zebra like patient case as like a case report on your personal statement. So kind of like, oh my goodness, I saw this really cool, I'll use Guillain-Barré, but like, that's not as rare still, but like I saw this really cool patient and they had all of these, different abnormalities and all these other things. And you end up talking more about the patient, how cool that patient was, when you should be directing it towards yourself. I think that's a big one. Also talking about how you got into PM&R. Make sure you tell it exactly, as it happened. And, if there's some dips along the way where you were thinking about something else, you're allowed to put that in. For example, I wanted to do psych for my first 2 years. And so I put that in my personal statement. And then I told them how I found PM&R from there. So it doesn't have to be I fell in love with PM&R immediately kind of thing. But yeah, I guess those are the biggest cliches that I've found. Yeah. What if you were not exposed to physiatry till much later? No home program, no exposure in school. I would put that in there. I would write it. I'd say, like, unfortunately, I haven't had much exposure to physiatry because I haven't had a home program. But this is what I did to compensate. And so that can really kind of shine like a light on how determined you are, how excited you are about PM&R, regardless of the circumstances, like how much you overcame those challenges. So yeah, talk about it. Be open. They love honesty. They love vulnerability, but professionally. It's a fine line. What if you don't really have an experience with patient or family and it was just a natural pull? Talk about it. I would say, what drew you to it? Was it the musculoskeletal nature? Was it the anatomy? Did you like the neuroscience about it? Were your friends all talking about it? And then what if it was a natural pull? Like, explain what in PM&R pulled you in. Was it the long-term patient care? Was it the quality of life you want for the patients? Was it you just want hands-on approach to people? Anything like that. Talk about why it pulled you, and then talk about what solidified your decision. Was it, your first time that you shadowed and you shadowed a PM&R dog, you were like, oh my God, everybody's so nice. This is it. I can't, this is absolutely it. Then talk about it. What sealed the deal? You can also talk about that too. If you're interested in a specific subspecialty, Peds PM&R, i.e., should you try keeping the personal statement more general, or is it okay to focus on the subspecialty throughout the whole personal statement? Absolutely focus on it. Yeah, make it a theme. It doesn't have to be the only thing you talk about, but yeah, if you have a story about peds, talk about it. If you have, a lot of experiences in, helping at a children's hospital, talk about it. And then at the end, say, hey, I'm really excited about, I think peds may be the right choice for me, but I'm excited to explore all of that PM&R has to offer, something like that. But yeah, if that's a theme, if that's something that you're excited about, talk about it for sure, highlight it. Should we largely stick to the same paragraph order as the template you showed? Is it okay to mix up paragraph 1, 2, 3, and 4 and end with a conclusion? Yeah, mix and match, totally. I would have some type of hook in there. I would make sure to have all the parts in there. I wouldn't necessarily start with like bragging about your experiences. But you're absolutely allowed to do whatever you want. So yeah, no, if you feel like it flows really well, then yeah, go for it. Is it a red flag if we say pain fellowship attracted me? I feel like, so there's a lot of ortho people that go, to they do PM&R as a backup for both pain and sports sometimes. So don't hype on it too much, but absolutely talk about why pain attracted you in the first place. That'll be good. You can absolutely talk about pain, but maybe not make it your overall like I have to do pain medicine, because that's hard. But yeah, if there's any subspecialty that excites you, you're absolutely allowed to talk about it. And you can even put it in your it just, yeah, you're allowed to talk about any type of thing. But I guess at the very end, regardless of what subspecialty you want to talk about, say that you're open, because they like hearing that. Is it possible for a personal statement to be too political or to send too strong of a message? I'm not sure. I haven't actually really seen very much of a political personal statement, but I do think I have had friends kind of go hard on different diversity agendas. I think if you want to go really strong, you might have some more conservative programs not be as interested, but you know what, you might not want them anyways, right? So that might be your way to weed those out. But if there's something that really matters to you and you're fighting for and you're excited about, then yeah, show it off. I would. I think in general, though, some of these people, are older faculty that are reading your personal statement. So, be a little bit careful, I would say. It's more about who you are and not teaching them a lesson. But otherwise, yeah, PM&R people are very much about diversity. We're very much about inclusion. And we love, yeah, that's something that you should highlight. You guys are so welcome. Any more questions out there? I wanted to make it short for you guys because I know you have a lot of things going on. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to put my email in the group chat if anybody wants to email me. I'm also on Twitter. So feel free to reach out at Alexandra Fry MD. So, all right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. I hope this helped and good luck. You guys got this.